How's it going, Knicks fans? Welcome back to another episode of Fireside Knicks with your hosts Dylan and Davin. And today we're going to talk about Tyler Kolek, the Knicks rookie that they took in the second round this past summer. He had a very solid performance yesterday in the preseason opener against the Charlotte Hornets. He had 11 points, 3 of 5, all from three-point range. We're just going to talk about that and whether or not he could possibly even crack the rotation this season. So Davin, first off, tell me how you're doing, and secondly, what did you think about Tyler Kolek's performance? What is your initial takeaway from it?
Thanks for asking, Dylan. I'm doing great, man. Hope you're doing well as well. Honestly, he surprised me, man. He shocked me. The guy has a poise that really he's an NBA ready player. But that's the thing. He plays on a team that has a lot of guards right now, a lot of guards. So that's really where it comes down to. Tyler Kolek really impressed me though yesterday. He really impressed me. 11 points, very aggressive on both sides of the ball, more aggressive than you would expect him to be. And like I said, he looks NBA ready, man. What'd you take away from it?
Right. I mean, one of my big takeaways was the scoring. I mean, it's kind of an overlooked part of his game because everyone knows him as a good passer. This is a guy who was I think, the top assist leader in the NCAA last year. He was a Big East Player of the Year also in 2022-23 season. This is a guy who has been known to be a playmaking guard who has the ability to score, but known really for his passing and his playmaking. And he flashed a lot of that in the summer league as well. He averaged 7 assists per game over there in Las Vegas and back in July. So this is a guy who's really been known to do all that. Not really known as much of a defender because, he's a little bit smaller in size. He's only like 6'3", and he's not exactly like the biggest guy weight-wise either. Pretty small guard, but a crafty guard at that. A guy who's got some finesse with the ball. And I was really impressed with the scoring. There's always that concern when you have a small guard, can he really score? Can he really make an impact, right? Yes, we have guys on the bench that can score, like Deuce McBride, and of course Landry Shamet as well, who might find a way into the rotation. But when you look at like Tyler Kolek, the whole concern was, can he score? And he did quite a lot in the scoring department yesterday against Charlotte. I mean, he hit 3 threes, he knocked them down pretty efficiently. He had, some good plays too, made some nice passes, made some really nice plays in the pick and roll especially, and I was really impressed with that. I mean, like you just said, this is a guy who looks to be NBA ready. There's been the big question of can he crack the rotation this season. Like you mentioned, lots of guards. You have Cameron Payne, you have Deuce McBride, Landry Shamet had a impressive performance as well. He might find his way into the rotation. So where does Tyler Kolek really fit is now the big question, right? I personally think there is a way for him to get playing time. I mean, I personally think that I would rather play him over Cameron Payne, but I also understand that the Knicks probably want to try to recreate that synergy that Payne and Shamet had on the Suns bench back in 2022 when they reached the NBA Finals. So I get where they're trying to go at with that, but I personally think that the better option is Tyler Kolek. And it sounds egregious because he is a rookie, and this is a guy who needs to develop still, and we can't draw a definitive conclusion off of a preseason game because you're facing mostly second and third stringers, and it's the Charlotte Hornets at that they're not a very good team. So it's a bunch of guys that are fresh out of college as well. So of course Kolek will look well matched up against all that. But I do think he performed well enough to where he deserves another opportunity to really get some more playing time in this preseason and have a chance to crack the roster. Me personally, I think he can crack the roster, and I think he should crack the roster. I think a second unit of Kolek, McBride, Shamet running that backcourt could be really effective offensively. Because, one of the biggest issues that the Knicks had off the bench last season was scoring and playmaking. They ranked towards the bottom in both of those categories last year from that bench unit. I think Kolek can really solve a lot of those issues. I've been saying that Deuce McBride needs to stay in the bench unit because he's able to score. He showed that a lot yesterday. I understand there's the argument of him possibly starting, but if you have Kolek out there, a guy who's a very good playmaker, a guy who can really move the ball around, a guy who's good with, he limits turnovers and all that stuff as well, I think he could really, really make that second unit a lot better looking than it is right now. Because on paper, we've had a lot of questions about the bench unit and what they can really do. But I think if you pair him alongside McBride and Shaman, a bunch of shooters around him, you're really going to have a nice flowing second unit. And Tom Thibodeau even highlighted that about the pace yesterday. He said that these guys play fast, they play hard, so I really think he deserves an opportunity. That's what I personally think, but I want to hear what you think about that. Do you think Tyler Kolek can crack the rotation this season?
Personally, I do not, man. I believe that it's just like when Miles McBride was on the bench and we saw Emmanuel Quickly, we saw Quentin Grimes. These are guys both contractually and skill-wise that kind of fit things at the degree that the Knicks needed at the time. And that's really what it's all about. This guy's a second-round pick. He's a rookie. We know how Tibbs of course, the pace he liked a lot, the playmaking he likes a lot, but we know how he is against rookies. You've got to pay your dues with Tom Thibodeau. This is how it is, as well as the fact that we do have a pretty heavy guard. Landry Shamet, he's probably going to make the roster here. But Cameron Payne's on a contract, and he's making more than Tyler Kolek. So things like that are like, just you got to play these guys. You got to play these guys. Both of those guys were really good yesterday, too. Landry Shamet and Cameron Payne had great performances yesterday. I believe that the playmaking side and the fact that our depth is not what it was, he will not be in the same position as McBride was for so long. Because we say McBride last season had a breakout year. I think this year coming up is more McBride's breakout year because last season at this time, the guy wasn't getting playing time. The guy wasn't touching the floor. He had Quentin Grimes ahead of him. He had Emmanuel Quickly ahead of him. And these guys are getting effectively more time. It wasn't until around after All-Star break that we really saw Miles McBride really come into his own. Really after Christmas, I'd say, we saw Miles McBride really come into his own completely. But before then, he couldn't crack 10 minutes a game. And that's kind of where Tyler Kolek will fall into, in my opinion, especially when I believe Shamet makes the roster. It's just more of a pedigree thing, you know what I mean? Because the playmaking that he brings, it would be excellent for the Knicks bench. It's not something that I believe that Thibodeau would put over paying his dues. Like, he's going to make sure you're going to be where you need to be as a player on every facet. Yes, we need to play making your defense, things like that. But if you have not given the same thing, let's say McBride, like he sat down and he worked hard for a whole season. He worked his tail off for like a whole year, did what he had to do. And now here we're seeing him get the fruits of that. That's kind of where we're at now. Now, I will say Kolek's in a better position. Like I said, the bench is not what it was. I don't think that's like we don't have the same weapons on the bench, so you're going to need a guy like Kolek sooner than later. So he may not have to wait as long as McBride did, but he will be having to wait, in my opinion. I don't think he cracks the rotation, honestly. But let's say something happens, knock on wood here, that Brunson, anything happens, then obviously you're going to have to bring this guy up because you're going to need bodies at that point. And that's not the wrong body to have. Tyler Kolek is very effective. I think he's going to be very good, as we saw yesterday. He's ready to play. The guy can go. So I have no question about that. He had, I believe, 2 steals, 1 block even, which is crazy to see. I was like, okay, this guy, okay. He's a dog, man. He's a dog. And we need those. So it's like, that's just really what it's all about. Being a rookie in this situation, just like McBride a couple years ago, you got to do what you got to do. Pay your dues and sit back, let Tibbs work you, and you'll get your match. You'll get your time to shine. And when that time does come, he's going to be the best backup point guard possibly in the league. Because this guy, Dougie, so we didn't even see him do a lot of playmaking yesterday, but just his poise and feel for the game of basketball, it's so obvious. So he leagues sort of knowing what he's supposed to be doing out there, and I look forward to watching him play, man. But just not yet. I don't think it's anytime soon.
Right, and a lot of people like yourself just now have been saying that Kolek could end up like McBride, where he kind of sat on the end of the bench for a couple seasons and then really got the opportunity when it presented himself. And while I can definitely see that happening, I feel like this situation's a little bit different. And the reason I say that is because Kolek is he was a bit of a seasoned vet in college, if you will. He played a lot of college seasons. I believe he played all 4 years, and he had a lot of accolades in college as well. McBride didn't exactly have that same kind of resume, if you will, in college. Yes, he was a very good player at West Virginia, do not get me wrong, West Virginia legend, but he didn't have the same type of resume that Kolek had. Kolek is a Big East Player of the Year, something that Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart both have, and this is also a guy that, like I just said, was an assist leader in the NCAA, a top scorer, led his team to the tournament a couple times as well. Yes, they didn't go far in the tournament, but they made the tournament nonetheless, which is still very hard to do when you have that many schools in college basketball. And plus, too, Kolek's age. This is a guy who's 23 years old. He's already kind of, grown into that, mature player a little bit. This is a guy who's kind of shown that as well by what he's done on the court. If you look in Summer League, this guy looked like he's someone who has kind of been accustomed to playing in an NBA setting already. He was making plays with the ball. He was making some really tough plays. He was coming up clutch too, which I think is important to note as well. This is a guy you can kind of trust on when you really need to be able to. And I don't know, I understand there's a logjam of guards, and I understand your argument too about paying guys, but something I want to note, he didn't play Evan Fournier after the first season, and this is a guy who was playing on a 4-year, $72 million deal. He could have easily played him off the bench. I'm sure a lot of fans at the time were saying that there is a way to play him on the bench at least. Yes, he was a liability starting. We all know that because the defense was just not there, right? But the shooting was there. So when you had that argument with Fournier, you could have said, oh, maybe he has a way to play on the bench. That way you're using his contract away. Instead, we were paying him all that money to sit on the bench and not play, which, is, of course, never a plus to have. You don't want to have that. You don't want to be able to pay a guy who's not playing at all. And of course, I understand you want to be able to play Payne and stuff like that, so that way it's not like you're wasting a contract. I get it, but it's not like Payne is under a $18 million a year contract, right? So clearly, Tom
Right.
Thibodeau has proven that contracts don't necessarily always matter, and that the play style is what really matters and the fit. And I think Tyler Kolek fits. I think he fits well with that second unit. I think playing him alongside McBride and Shamet would be very, very, very beneficial. You know, we've concerned the playmaking. I've said the playmaking concerns with the bench all along. I think a lot of people's concerns with McBride leading the second unit is specifically in the playmaking department because they know he's not exactly a playmaker and he's more of a shooter. I think if you put Kolek in there, a guy who is primarily a playmaker, he's not a score first player. I know he was very aggressive scoring yesterday and didn't really do a whole lot of playmaking, but this is a guy who is a playmaking first guy. This isn't
Yeah.
a score first player, and he was doing, like I just said, if you could have him alongside some shooters like McBride and Shamet and a Chua 2 up there, I think you're really gonna have a smooth flowing second unit. And that would really help me, alleviate some of the concerns that I have about the bench. Because
Yeah.
we've had a lot of concerns about the bench unit. We worried about their depth, their experience as well. They're a relatively inexperienced bench. So, looking at that, I think, yes, on the surface you could say, oh, adding, another inexperienced guard to a bench that has title aspirations could backfire. Yes, I totally understand that. Kolek is not an experienced NBA player. Yes, experienced college, but not experienced in the NBA. It's a whole different landscape. I understand that. But at the same time, I do think he's the better option to go with, and I think you could really take advantage here and get him developed rather quickly with playing alongside younger guys that match his play style. We saw the Knicks give Emmanuel Quickly a shot right away. And yes, I understand Quickly was a first round pick. Kolek is not a first round pick. But at the same time, like I just said, they gave Quickly an opportunity right away. This is a guy who was not expected to make the rotation in his first NBA season, but he balled out in preseason, made the rotation, and not only made the rotation, Quickly became their, most important bench piece. And he was that way for a few seasons. Not saying that Kolek is on an Emmanuel Quickly trajectory, but I do think this guy can still have a massive impact. And I think if you give him an opportunity right away with this bench unit that's still trying to figure itself out together, you can really take advantage of that and get him developed with these guys. And then by season's end and close to the playoffs, you have yourself a really solid bench unit. That's what I think. I think really you save yourself from asking a lot of questions about it. But that's what I think about it. What do you think?
You're making really good points. I believe that, like for example, playmaking is a necessity. I believe Jalen Brunson can't be the guy doing it all the time. That's just a fact. On the bench, we saw yesterday they kind of staggered. They practiced it yesterday. They staggered Mikal Bridges. They took him out, put McBride in. If Mikal Bridges is going to be staggering with the bench unit, then you want a guy like Tyler Kolek to be on the bench because this guy is a proven playmaker. So to have that guy working with Mikal Bridges, getting him his shots, because that's one thing I also want to discuss. We'll maybe do that in another episode. Mikal Bridges playing that role, he's got to get his shots, man. Mikal Bridges is due a 4-year, I believe, $157 million extension after the season. He wants to wait after the season. Okay, if that's going to happen, this guy is going to be averaging, let's say, 17, 19 points a game. Okay, how is that going to happen? You know what I mean? How else is that going to happen? You kind of have to stagger him on the bench. You kind of have to play him with a certified playmaker because Jalen Brunson's going to go get his 32. Cat's getting his 21, 22. And you got other guys in the know, but you got to feed all these guys. But the only way I see Mikal Bridges getting off really is working with a certified playmaker like Tyler Kolek. So that's kind of how you can see it. Miles McBride, he's not the playmaker that we see in Kolek, but Miles McBride can kind of get the job done. It's just that's kind of where they're going to juggle that at because do you want to put your faith in McBride being the playmaker that we see he can be, or Kolek, you want to go ahead and let the rookie do what he has to do, ascend like we saw Emmanuel quickly do in the past. So that's very much formidable, but I could definitely see that argument. But that's kind of how I see it. Kolek gets minutes. It's going to be, to benefit the other guys in the rotation. That's kind of be the playmaker. So he does have that over McBride at the moment right now. Like I said, the bench needs a guy like that, and we're not as deep as we once were. So it would not surprise me at all if the guy was to crack it by All-Star break, be able to be in the rotation, be a hustle guy that we need. That's because maybe Brunson, maybe somebody not injured but just banged up or something. You want an extra body, alleviate some minutes for the guy. Go give him 15 minutes a game. And something interesting could happen there. But that's what I think the greatest benefit would be of playing Kolek, having a playmaker beside Mikal Bridges.
Right, and that's a very good point. But like I'm saying here, I think that their best lineup off the bench unit involves Tyler Kolek over Cameron Payne. And I don't think Cameron Payne is necessarily a bad fit because you're playing him with Shamet. You're going to probably play him with Bridges as well. You'll get a lot of synergy there. You'll kind of recreate that 2022 Suns vibes and stuff, which is very good, of course, because that team made the NBA Finals. I understand what they're trying to do, like I said earlier, but I really think that their best lineup off the bench involves Kolek, McBride, and Shamet. And yes, it sounds like on paper it's like, oh, 3 guards and 3 small guards. Those guys play fast, they play quick. You're going to stagger, like you just said, you're going to stagger some minutes with Bridges in there. Probably get Anunoby in there occasionally as well, maybe even Josh Hart. They'll mix and match their options until they really see what's working. But I think it really would benefit the bench unit a lot. I think the ball would be moving so much faster if you have Kolek out there with those guys because you have playmaker in Kolek, you have shooters in McBride and Shamet, and then of course you have the leader of that unit in Bridges, or whoever else from the starting five they pull to lead the bench unit. I think that's what I personally think. I think it's the best lineup they have on paper with that. I understand though if he doesn't make the rotation right away because like we've been talking about, this guy is a rookie. He needs to figure it out a little bit in the NBA. He's still got to get his footing. But I think he looked very confident yesterday, and I think that really plays a part. And I think that really would raise some eyebrows in the Knicks coaching staff when they see just how confident he looked scoring the basketball, how confident he looked handling the rock as well. I mean, there's not many small guards, especially rookie guards, that come into the league and immediately look as confident as he did yesterday. Yes, I understand it's the preseason, but still, it matters because at the end of the day, it is technically an NBA game, so it does make a massive difference. Now, I don't think if he does make the rotation, let's say he does, I don't think he's going to get a massive role right away. I think it'll be a very small role. He'll probably be playing maybe like 8 to 10 minutes. I don't think he's going to be getting anything massive. But I think even with that, just that kind of ounce of experience is very, very beneficial for down the stretch when you might need him a little bit more. You might identify the need for playmaking is a little bit bigger, which I still think is. I think playmaking is a massive need out of the bench unit. And then maybe as the season goes along, they identify some other needs that Kolek can fit. And then, who knows, maybe he could quickly flourish into one of their most impactful bench pieces like that. And I understand if they end up doing the Miles McBride route as well, where they kind of just, have him on the end of the bench for a couple seasons or for a little bit, get some sporadic playing time here and there, but really not fully flourish into the rotation until the opportunity opens. But I still think this is a different situation than that. I really do, because when McBride was in that spot, there were a lot more guards that were clear. You could clearly have an argument for playing over. You could easily argue Quentin Grimes deserved to play over him. You could argue Emmanuel Quickley, of course, deserved to play over him. There was no really disputing that at the time. And plus, their bench unit was a lot deeper, too. You had guys like Obi Toppin in that bench unit and other players. So there was really no clear lane for McBride to play just because of the fact that there were other players that were clearly better than him at the time. Of course, times are different now, but I think like I've been saying, I think Kolek has a way better chance to crack the rotation with this bench unit that we have at the moment right now. Just because there is that little depth, and there's you have guys that you're not necessarily guaranteed to have a stunning impact. I think Kolek can really provide that. That's really all I got to say about it, though. I want to let you get your final thoughts off though before we wrap it up.
No, yeah, we can go ahead and do that because I honestly, you said it perfectly. That's really how we can see it. Like I said, he's a rookie. He's got to pay his dues. He's got to do what he has to do beside Tom Thibodeau's system, and beyond that, man, we got to just wait and see because the guys he showed all the flashes yesterday. I really can't wait to see him Wednesday night. See how playmaking he does against the Wizards because the Wizards. Shout out Jordan Poole. I got to shout the guy out. The guy's a hooper. Those are a lot of smaller guards. Alexander Stars over there, rookies over there. Got some rookie showdowns going on Wednesday night. Going to be looking forward to that. So, man, I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and like you just mentioned, Wednesday night against the Wizards, I think Kolek's going to see the floor a lot more now, especially after what he just did against Charlotte. He played about 15 minutes against Charlotte. I think we could see him for a good 20 to 25 now, though, against Washington. Of course, I expect to see the starters a little bit more as well, but I do think Kolek has deserved the opportunity to kind of really try to lead the second unit. I think Thibodeau will let him try to do that as well, because he kind of got some of the minutes with some of like the third stringers, like he was playing with like Jacob Toppin and Jericho Sims. I think this time around Thibodeau's going to give him the opportunity to really see the floor with like McBride, Shamet, and Achua, and who knows, maybe even perhaps one of the starters as well. I think this will be the game where we really see that. But of course, that's a couple days from now, so we'll really wait and see about that. But guys, we really hope you enjoyed this video. Let us know what you guys think about Tyler Kolek in the comment section below. Do you guys think he'll crack the rotation, or do you think he won't? Let us know. We would love to discuss that with you guys. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, of course this YouTube page you're watching the video on. You can follow our personal Twitter accounts. They are above our heads. And we will see you guys in the next episode of Fireside Knicks. Peace out.